Welcome back to another deep dive into the Harry Potter universe. Today, we're tackling a list of wizards whispered about with both pride and horror, the Sacred 28, the so-called pureblood elite of British wizarding society. We'll explore their full history and delve into each family. Let's dive right in and explore where the term Sacred 28 comes from. Back in the 1930s, the list of the Sacred 28 was published. While the author remained anonymous, it's widely believed to have been compiled by Cantankerous Knot. The list served as a pureblood directory, naming 28 wizarding families considered truly pure blood in Britain. From the self-important Malfoys to the surprisingly included Weasleys, these families were held up as the magical aristocracy. Some, like the Malfoys, treated the list as a sort of magical VIP pass to preserve their power, land, and social standing. The ideology behind the list stems from none other than Salazar Slytherin, a man who never met a muggle-born he didn't mistrust. The list conveniently aligned with his beliefs about magical purity. Ironically, some listed families weren't entirely pure. Take Ollivander, whose wand-making brilliance came from a partially muggle-born mother. Even the Potters, true purebloods, were excluded simply because their surname was common among muggles. Not to mention, Harry's great-grandfather Henry Potter was a pro-muggle member of the Wizengamot, advocating for muggle rights and against wizarding intervention in the non-magical world. In that sense, the Sacred 28 was more of a hate club than a pedigree chart. Nearly all these families were intermarried. As Sirius Black once quipped, it was easier to draw a family tree than untangle their relationships. But why did some cling so tightly to the idea of blood purity? It was about power, prestige, and avoiding the label of blood traitor. Pure blood supremacists dismissed muggle-borns, influenced magical policy, and later fueled Voldemort's ideology. This closed system led to a narrow definition of magical purity, along with unpleasant consequences: incest, elitism, and, yes, the rise of the Death Eaters. The publication of the list stirred controversy. Some were scandalized by what it represented. Others were outraged by being left off of it. Let's now look at each family included in the Sacred 28. Abbott. We meet the Abbott family through Hannah Abbott, a Hufflepuff student in the series. Remember in Goblet of Fire when a group of students wore Potter Stinks badges? Yep, that included Hannah, who later became Neville Longbottom's wife. The family's believed to have lost pureblood status after the 1930s when Muggles, Muggleborns, and Half-Bloods married into the line. Hannah herself was a half-blood, and her mother was killed by Death Eaters for opposing their ideology. Avery. Not much is known, but members of the Avery family were loyal Death Eaters. Black. The Black family proudly bore the motto Toujours Pur, French for always pure, as seen on their family tapestry at 12 Grimmauld Place. They were strong believers in blood purity and magical supremacy, and among the oldest pureblood families. Most were sorted into Slytherin, and many became Death Eaters, like Bellatrix and Narcissa. Sirius, of course, was the black sheep of the Black family, literally burned off the family tree by his mother. When Bellatrix killed Sirius in the Department of Mysteries, the main Black bloodline was effectively extinguished. Bulstrode. Though considered mostly pure, the bloodline eventually mingled with Muggle ancestry. Millicent Bulstrode, who caused Hermione to cough up fur balls in the Polyjuice Potion incident during the Chamber of Secrets, was reportedly a half-blood. Burke. Yet another known name in the Harry Potter universe is the name of Burke. Caractacus Burke co-founded Borgin & Burke's, the notorious dark magic shop in Nocturne Alley, where Harry encounters the Hand of Glory and Draco discovers the Vanishing Cabinet. Moreover, Voldemort even worked there for a time after his studies, but more on that and the impacts thereof will follow soon in another video. Caro. The Caros had deep ties to dark magic, supporting both Grindelwald and Voldemort. Siblings Alecto and Amicus were appointed teachers at Hogwarts under Voldemort's regime, where they routinely tortured students using the Cruciatus Curse in the name of discipline and education. Crouch. An ancient pureblood family best known through Barty Crouch Sr. and Barty Crouch Jr., both central figures in the Goblet of Fire. Similar to the Black family, the Crouch bloodline ended when Barty Crouch Jr. was given the Dementor's kiss, a fate worse than death, leaving him an empty husk. Whilst theoretically still alive, he was left incapable of thinking, moving, or acting of his own accord. So, for all purposes, we can consider him dead, along with his family tree. Folly. A pureblood family often sorted into Hufflepuff. A notable member served as Minister for Magic in the 1920s. Not much else is known. Flint. The only known member is Marcus Flint, Slytherin Quidditch captain. Beyond that, the family's history is obscure. Gaunt. The Gaunt family were the ancestors of none other than Voldemort. Though he was a half-blood, the Gaunt line dates back to the 1600s and descends from both Salazar Slytherin and the Peverills. Proud of their heritage, the family was largely involved in keeping the Chamber of Secrets hidden. For instance, when a new plumbing system was installed in Hogwarts in the 1700s, the Gaunt family made sure the chamber would not be found. They practiced inbreeding to preserve purity and magical abilities, such as the Parseltongue. Over time, the family fell into ruin. fueling Voldemort's resentment for both his parents, but in particular, his Muggle father. Greengrass. The Greengrass family grew more tolerant over time. Astoria Greengrass, Draco's wife, openly rejected her family's anti-Muggle views. Lestrange. A wealthy inbred family with deep ties to the dark arts, Rodolphus Lestrange and his wife Bellatrix were both notorious Death Eaters. Longbottom. A pure-blood family known for valor, not prejudice. Frank and Alice Longbottom were heroic aurors tortured into insanity by Bellatrix, while pure-blooded and progressive, Longbottoms weren't labeled as blood traitors like the Weasleys. Macmillan, another Hufflepuff-aligned family. Ernie Macmillan, a classmate of Harry's, was part of this line. Similar to families such as the Longbottoms, they weren't radical about blood purity. Malfoy. Wealthy and proud, the Malfoys were central players in the Slytherin house and supporters of Voldemort. Consequently, their estate was used as a base of operations for the Death Eaters during the war. The Malfoys have a long lineage leading to their influence and wealth. Despite their obsession with blood status, they avoided inbreeding, understanding the dangers this could bring. Not. Little is known except that they were typically sorted into Slytherin and had known Death Eaters among them. Ollivander. One of the oldest wizarding families and renowned wand makers, the Ollivander family has had a significant influence on the wizarding world. Just consider the fact that Garrick Ollivander made both Harry's and Voldemort's wands. Parkinson. Pansy Parkinson, a fellow student of Harry's, was reportedly a mean Slytherin and infamously had an interest in Draco Malfoy. Not much else is known about the family. Pruitt. The Pruitts, Molly Weasley's family, were purebloods but didn't value blood status. Reportedly, many members of the Pruitt family had red hair and long noses. Rosier. Closely tied to the dark arts and blood purity, the Rosiers were connected to both Grindelwald and Voldemort. Roll. Their family history varies, but recent members, like the Death Eater Thorfinn Roll, aligned with anti-Muggle sentiment. Selwyn. A powerful, wealthy family connected to Death Eaters, Dolores Umbridge even claims Selwyn lineage. Shacklebolt. While pure-blooded, the Shacklebolts were inclusive. Kingsley Shacklebolt fought Voldemort and protected the Muggle Prime Minister as well as Harry, hardly a blood supremacist. Shafiq. Not much is known. They were purebloods when the list was published, but never appeared in canon. Slughorn. The Slughorns were known to be tolerant of non-purebloods, a fact that was depicted by Horace Slughorn throughout the series. The family is reportedly rather wealthy, and its members have held high offices in the ministry throughout history. Travers. While obscure, one known Death Eater came from the Travers family, suggesting blood purity sympathies. Weasley. The Weasleys were infamous among pureblood families for being Muggle-loving blood traitors. As such, Arthur worked in the Ministry's Misuse of Muggle Artifacts office. Moreover, the members of the Weasley family did actively engage in the fight against Voldemort. Yaxley. Whilst not many members of the Yaxley family were featured in the saga, we know of at least one who was a Death Eater, Corbin Yaxley, as it was he who was at the head of the Department for Magical Law Enforcement and thus in charge of the registration of Muggle-born witches and wizards. So there they are, 28 names, some infamous, some nearly forgotten. Interestingly enough, many of these families who focused on blood purity chose to follow a half-blood and, in doing so, contributed to the downfall of their own legacies as families like the Blacks and Crouches have no heirs left. In the end, Voldemort's war for blood supremacy destroyed the very families he aimed to glorify. This is history with the moral. Exclusivity often wraps itself in self-delusion, fear, and hypocrisy. The Harry Potter universe uses the Sacred 28 to illustrate how prejudice and power can corrupt when lineage becomes more important than character. So, here's the truth in true Geek Talk style. These families, some heroes, some villains, were all part of a selective, insidious system that taught identity through exclusion. My take, the Sacred 28 shows how even in magical worlds, people fall into the same traps as in ours, celebrating purity while ignoring humanity. But it also shows that blood doesn't define morality. The Weasleys proved that love and openness are much more powerful than elitism, and the character development of Draco Malfoy shows that people can't change. At the end of the day, being pureblood might have offered them prestige, but it also imprisoned them in narrow thinking and, occasionally, Azkaban. What do you think? Which Sacred 28 family surprised you most? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more lore deep dives, hit subscribe and ring that notification bell. Until next time on Geek Talks.